Hey, it's my joy one more time to come to you as we do every Monday and just share with you something that perhaps will help you right now. Again, with all the load that you're carrying and with the crisis that's here, we're all being moved, and this is a difficult time. So I want to share with you something that I've really been thinking about for the last 5 or 6 days, and so I just developed a lesson on it. It comes from a statement that I've said before that I just have always loved this saying, and that is that what we focus on expands. And that's where we're going to go today, because what you and I really do focus on, it begins to get bigger in our life. Just as, to be honest with you, what we don't focus on begins to shrink. And so what happens in a crisis is, of course, it causes great distraction. I mean, this country is distracted. And so distraction is just a word that basically means I kind of lose my way. I was talking to a businessman this week, and he was sharing with me. He said he was a Christian, a faith person, and he said, I feel like Nehemiah, and I'm up there building the wall, and everybody's wanting me to come down and want to talk to me, and I keep saying I'm building a wall, I cannot come down. Well, what happens is when we have traction, we're moving towards something. That's a beautiful thing. But when we get distracted, we begin to move away, which that's not a good thing. I was reading a few days ago. I'm getting a lot of books in, just like probably you are. There are a lot of things that I'm able to do right now because of the crisis that normally I wouldn't be able to do to the degree. But Dan Ryland, he's a wonderful kid, and he's not a kid really, but when he came out of seminary in 1982, I was pastoring at Skyline, and I literally mentored him, and he's been very close to me since then. And he wrote a book called Confident Leader, and I was reading it. It just came out. It's for a Christian audience, but it's a very, very good book. And in it, he has something that I just love that just fits right here on what we focus on and expands. He has an expression that I'm picking up now. In fact, after I use it about 10 times, it's going to be mine, not Dan's. And his expression is, pick your rabbit. Now, he takes that expression, pick your rabbit, from the expression that we've all heard, that if you chase two rabbits, you don't catch either one of them. And the reason you don't catch either one of the two rabbits you're chasing is because you can't focus on one. You get distracted. About the moment you're ready to get one, you say, well, maybe this one's a little bit closer. And so basically, we got two things we're chasing, and we end up with none of them. And so Dan would say to us today, hey, at times like this, you got to pick your rabbit. And my father, by the way, I just saw my dad last week. He's 98 and a half now, and had some good time with him. He's getting weaker, but about every time I think he's going to die and leave us, he comes back. So I call him Daddy Lazarus all the time, because I just say, Dad, you just keep coming back. But my father, when we were kids, whenever he had anything important for us, because my father was a big focus guy, he would look at us. He said, now that was important. Write that down. And so we'd write it down. But he wasn't content with us just writing it down. He'd say, oh, and by the way, put that in front of you. In other words, he wanted us not only to write it down, but he wanted us to put it, on our mirror in our bathroom or somewhere where we could constantly see whatever we had just written down. In other words, write it down, put it before you. Well, what I want to talk about today is, what do we put before us during this time? And what do we put behind us? You see, whatever we put before us, we focus on. What we ever put behind us, we don't focus on. It's not important. It's not a huge priority. And to be honest with you, what we put behind us will shrink, and what we put before us will expand and get clear. So I'm going to throw some stuff at you here in the few minutes that I have, and I won't get through the whole lesson, but it's okay. Let's just talk about, what do we put before us? And by the way, this is a choice we get to make. I get to choose what I put before me. I get to choose what I put behind me in the area of focus. So let's talk about number one, and these aren't in any order of priority, but number one, put behind you what you can't do, and put before you what you can do. Okay, I know that's pretty simple, but I'm watching all kinds of people put before them what they can't do. They're putting before them anxiety and worry and fear. They're putting stuff in front of them that they absolutely, the questions they're asking. There's a whole bunch of stuff we can't control. And if you can't control it, if you can't do it right now, just put it behind you. It's okay. Put it behind you. Let's talk about what we can do, what we can control, What are the things that I can do right now to make it? For example, well, what I can't do, my list is simple. I travel all the time. Guess what I can't do? I can't travel. I speak to crowds in proximity, publicly all the time. Hey, I can't speak. Hey, I'm a leader, so what I do, I talk about the future a lot. I'm not talking about the future a lot right now. I'm kind of like everybody else. I'm not certain about some things. Now, I'm very clear, but I'm not certain about some things. There are just some things right now I can't do. I told Mark, who does a fabulous job overseeing all the John Maxwell Enterprise. This isn't the great sell time for the resources that we have. That people they're not focused. Now, there's a lot of things I can't do. Okay, I got that. That's all behind me. But what can I do? Well, I can do this today. I can get out of my comfort zone and do technology, which I'm not good at all. But I must confess, even though I'm coming from my home, my friend Andrew, who's on my team, came over here to make sure that this thing really works because he knows how bad I really am. But what I can do is I can come to you every Monday at noon through technology and hopefully give you some stuff that'll really help you. But what I can do is I can write. In fact, I'm in my last week of writing what is my most important book. It's going to be called Change Your World, and it's all about transformation. How do you transform your community? How do you transform the people right around you? And I'm in my last week. I can't sleep, to be honest with you. Yesterday, I got up at 3:30 because my mind was so full of ideas that I had to get up because I had to start writing because I was afraid I was going to lose them. And again, this morning, I was back up early. And I can start to smell. I can start to see the light at the end of the tunnel. I can start to smell some victory here. But that I can do that right now. I can add value to you. I can do my very best to do that. I can certainly take care of myself. I can take care of my family. Right now I can do some catch up. I don't know about you, but I had a stack in my office here of probably 18, 20 books that I've just stacked up that I just hadn't gotten to. And so I'm slowly kind of working through that. Okay, these are some things I can do. And there are a lot more. I don't need to go into that. Here's what I want you to understand. There are 2 expansion quotes. If you really want life and the good stuff to get in front of you and get clearer and bigger, there are 2 expansion quotes I want to give you. I already gave you one. What you focus on expands. The second one, though, is about courage. And I love this one as much as the other one. And this statement is that life shrinks or expands in proportion to your courage. Now, what's beautiful is if we can get these 2 statements side by side, and they really are basically the same statements, what that's really saying to us, I love this, is the fact that if we'll put before us the important things, and if we'll have courage to do them, all of a sudden, our world in front of us is just going to expand, get clearer, get better. And the world that is behind us will become less. You see, focus and courage are 2 incredible mobilizers, okay? They just are. It's like if you were like when I was a kid, the story that I love, my favorite story as a kid, what my mother would read me was The Little Train Who Thought He Could. It's about the little engine, or guess the little engine who looked up and saw the big hill, wasn't sure he could, but he said, I think I can, I can. Focus, 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 kept going. He's got courage to try the hill. He's focused on the hill. He gets to the top. I thought I could, and off he goes. I love that story. In fact, I used to kind of act it out. In fact, I remember going to my class one time and acting the whole story out. But the point of it is if you have courage to focus on the important things in front of you right now, what can you and I do right now that expands? Number 2, and this is kind of for maybe the business world, but I just say to you right now, okay, I got to contextualize this, but put behind you the sale, and put before you adding value to people. Now, obviously, we got to sell. Businesses have to, grow, and businesses have to, they got something that they have to exchange for that keeps them in business. I understand that, but I'll tell you what really centered me on this is I was thinking of the other day. I was taking a walk, and I was thinking about 2 questions that have to do with branding and what people think of us. And I thought of 2 questions, and I want to throw them out to you, and then I think it really helps me contextually with this statement. Here they are. One of the questions we ask ourselves is, What do we want others to say about us? What I want others to say about me? Hey, I want them to say I'm their friend. That's why what I tell you all the time. Hello, my name's John, and I'm your friend. Why do I tell you that all the time? Because I want you to know that I'm your friend. So what do I want? What do I want you to say about me? I want you to say John's my friend. Okay. Well, same thing. What do you want them to say about your business? Like, okay, that's the first question. The second question, though, is what do they say about us? Now, those questions are almost very similar, but I'm telling you, there's a huge gap between what do I want you to say about me and what do you say about me? What do I want you to say about my company and what do you say about my company? You see, one is the ideal, what I would hope you would do, but the other is the real. One's ideal, one's real. And what you say about me is really the effect I have on you. That's why I love this idea right now of adding value to people. Now, I try to do it every day. It's truly, nothing's changed in my life. I've always put adding value to people first. But what I want you to hear is very important. What they say about you is going to be greatly determined by how you and I take care of our clients and our customers right now. And I can tell you that if you're just put the people first and add value to them and serve them and let them know and let them know that you just really care about them for people, I can tell you, you can close that gap between what you want them to say and what they do say about you. It's Zig Ziglar telling me when I was a kid, if you'll just add value to people and if you'll put them first, they're going to take care of you too. And I bought into that then. I buy in it today. I buy into it today more than any other time. You see, as leaders, I think I got this from Kevin Myers, but as leaders, we want to constantly let our people know that we want more for them than we want from them. We want them to know that. So this is the time to really do that. I was talking to another business. I was doing one of our legacy people. I was helping them with their company a little bit, and they're in real estate, and they were sharing with me that that right now they're offering a lot of free just training classes to real estate people, and they decided to open up to anybody. I mean, if you're in our company, okay, this is free training, but if you're not in the company, it's okay too. And we want to share with them. And I asked them how it was going, and as they were talking to me, they said, John, what's very interesting is people that are not in our company at all, they're coming back to us and they're saying, you want to help us more than the people in our company want to help us. You're thinking about us more than the people that in the company that we belong to. And I thought to myself, what a beautiful way to position yourself, to where they look at somebody that's not even the real estate company that they belong to, and they're saying, well, they're helping me more than my own company's helping me right now. There's just something about right now putting people right in front of you. For example, this is so simple, but every day, I've done this throughout the entire month of April. Every day, there are 5 different people. Every day, I pick 5 different people to touch base with, and just, what can I do for you? How can I help you? Is there anything I can add value to you in your life? And every day, I go through a different group of 5, and it's not a long list. It doesn't take me that long. I text them many times in the beginning, or give them maybe a quick call. But it's just, I'm just wanting them to know, hey, you're in front of me. I'm focused on you. Number 3, put behind you your reactions and put before you your reflections. Crisis causes people to react like crazy. Okay. Wow. And I'm just saying to us right now, the easiest thing for anybody to do is react. But that brings you and me to no good leadership position at all. We need to reflect so we can respond. What we need is good responses based upon thinking and reflection and meditation and prayer. What we need is responses based on reflection, not reaction based on emotion. And I can still remember in the 2008 financial crisis, that was what kind of stimulated me to write the book. Sometimes you win, sometimes you learn. And I'm just saying to you right now, don't count your losses right now. Count your lessons. Just focus on the lessons, because I'm here to tell you, if we pull away every day and reflect and observe and look around us and say, what am I learning from this? How is this changing me? And is it changing me for the better? Am I swimming upstream right now? Because if you're changing for the better, that's exactly what you're having to do. The other day, Mark Cole and I were having a conversation, and he gave this to me, and I thought it was so good. He said, John, we were talking about the business, the John Maxwell Enterprise. He said, John, business will always follow values. So what he was basically saying, you know what, John, if your values are just good and strong, basically all your business practices, they just get in line with your values and they go down the values lane. But he said, but values will not always follow your business. And I thought that was so true, because if you and I have our mind totally on business and well, I'm losing money right now, and what should I do to the people, and should I put them first? All of a sudden, those values can get behind us. Keep the values in front of you right now. And reflect on them and what they're doing. You see, during a crisis, Chris Hodges sent this to me. Oh my gosh, maybe right at the very 1st of April. I've had it on my desk and I've looked at it some, but I haven't talked about it at all. But he sent this to me, and I thought how true it is. There are 3 zones during a crisis, and the first zone is where a whole bunch of people are living right now. It's the fear zone. And that's the reaction. Remember, I'm saying put behind you your reaction. When I am in the fear zone, I am continually reacting. You know what? I'm going to the grocery store and I'm buying toilet paper I don't need. I just am. That's who I am. What have you done today? I bought toilet paper today. That's what I did. I'm just absolutely fear-based reacting. There's another zone in a crisis that we can go into if we want to, and that's the learning zone. That's the learning zone, and that's where we reflect. That's where we say, okay, what am I learning in this period of time? I hope every one of you are making a list of the things that you're learning, the things that you're changing. I have a list, and every day during this crisis, my list gets a little bit clearer. And it is a little bit more impacting on me. One of the things that I've really had to reflect on a lot, and every day what I'm doing during this time is I'm taking long walks, and one of the things I'm really reflecting on is that this crisis is showing me is I don't have big enough margins in my life. That I to be honest with you, I love living on the edge. It's who I am. Okay, so that's a problem you can pray for me. In fact, one of my favorite quotes: if you're not living on the edge, you're taking up too much room. Okay, so you got it. That's who I am. But during this time, I have time to really write my transformational book, Change Your World, and I'm able to go to a whole different level writing this book than I ever have any other time. I am going through this book now for the 6th time. And every time I just take it up another notch. Charlie and I talked for an hour today, and we're spending another week. And guess what? I'm getting ready to go through it for the 7th time. And the only reason I can do this, I am going to be able to have a book that's going to help people really become transformational in their lives and their people's lives. But the only reason I'm going to have a book that has its depth and its gravitas that it has is because I have time. If I would have had my regular schedule, could I put the book out? Yes. Would it have been the book it is now? No. And the question I'm asking all of us right now, it's an important question, is what are we upping in our life? What is getting better in our life? What bar are we living? What level of excellence are we getting up higher because we have a little bit more time maybe to do that? And what it's just taught me, okay, the lesson I'm learning is the fact that I just need to get a little bit more margin in my life, because there's another level of excellence that I could have if I had just a little bit of that margin. So there's the fear zone, which is reactive. I'm reacting in that zone. There's the learning zone. Okay, now I'm reflecting. And then there's the growth zone. And the growth zone is where I respond. And that's why I said, if if you react, it's fear-based, but if I reflect, then what I can do as a leader is I can begin to respond. I can give answers that have purpose. I can give answers that have meaning. I can give answers that have direction and depth to them. There's a maturity that I can have in this growth zone that's just going to help me to go to a whole new level. See, here's what happens. Because of the crisis, there's a lot of uncertainty because they're focused on the outside. And a lot of people are asking themselves right now, I'm not sure my life is going to be better after this crisis. And I understand that because there are a lot of people that are going to take incredible financial hits. There are businesses that are going to close. I'm taking financial hits. The John Maxwell Enterprise, we're bleeding. We got that. We got that. But let me tell you something I'm absolutely sure of about this crisis. I can't talk about you, but I can talk about me. I promise you, I'm going to be better coming out of this crisis. I am going to be better. That's very exciting to me. I'm going to grow on the inside to a whole different level than I've ever grown. And I just want to challenge every one of you. Don't count the days, make the days count. I just want to challenge all of us to put behind us the reactions of everybody. And, it's always the same thing. What's great about watching the news now is you can skip a week, turn it on, and it's the same as it was last week. Nothing's changing. Or else we can put before us that I'm going to reflect and I'm going to get in the growth zone. I'm going to get in the learning zone during this crisis. Okay, number four. Put behind you the difficulties and put before you the progress. I just love this thought. I hope I could do a good job with it, because one of the things a crisis does is a crisis takes you and me, all of us, out of automatic. And can I tell you something? We all love automatic. Automatic means I got it down. And I don't need to give an incredible amount of thought to it. I don't need to figure out a new system because I already know the road to take. I've already got the plan. I got it. And we love I got it because I got it means we don't have to give quite as much time to it because we got it. And in a crisis, we don't got it. I don't know what you got in February, but you don't got it now. One of the things I think that's healthy of this crisis, I think it brings to a great sense of humility to all of us, that we're not in control, that we don't always have answers, and we're not always the man. And I think that's just very healthy for me. I think it's healthy for you. I think it's healthy for all of us. And I just want to talk to you about the very fact that put behind you the difficulties and put before you the progress. So I'm going to come back to automatic in a moment, but let me just make sure I contextualize this right for you so you got it. Booker T. Washington said this. He said, success is not the position that you've arrived at. He said, success is what you had to overcome to get where you are today. So Booker T. Washington had this all down. He says, when you look at a person and where they have arrived, don't look at that and say they're a success. Look at what they had to overcome to get there. And what happens is the crisis has taken us out of automatic. Now, when we're in automatic, what happens to us? Well, when you're in automatic, when I'm in automatic, we're filled with assumptions. We literally live every day with assumptions. It's always been this way, and it always has worked this way, and so it's going to be this way. And so we just kind of go down this automatic assumption trail. Assumptions aren't good. Assumptions don't cause me to ask good questions. Assumptions don't cause me to think. Assumptions don't cause me to reflect. We all take assumptions for granted. And anybody that's in the assumption arena, we take them for granted. So what's happened is we've gotten knocked out of automatic. Crisis doesn't let us be in automatic. And so that what happens is we lose those assumptions. That's a good thing. The other thing that happens when we get out of automatic is we get kicked out of the very center of our comfort zone. we're kicked out. I mean, nobody right now is looking and saying, I'm right in the middle of my comfort zone. You see, we've been kicked out of that. And let me also tell you that when we're in automatic, we're not very adaptable. We're not very flexible. We're not in automatic. We're not very hungry. And this crisis has taken us out of automatic. When we're in automatic, let me tell you, we're going downhill in automatic. I teach that everything worthwhile is uphill. Let me tell you something. Uphill is not automatic. It's never been automatic. It's not going to be automatic. Downhill is. So when we're in automatic, there's just tendency for us to coast. We think we're a hotel room with a do not disturb sign on us. I mean, just kind of, I got it. Please don't disturb me. Wow. So put before you the progress you're making. Let me just say this. I can remember, most of you know that I was a pastor. And when I was in San Diego, we bought 80 acres of ground in Southern California, and we had to get it zoned. I cannot even go into that story because I just want to, it took us 11 years to get it zoned, and it cost us $8.5 million. Okay. Hundreds of meetings, ridiculous red tape. We had a black-tailed gnatcatcher that didn't even live on the property. It just landed on the property, and it was an endangered bird. We literally, just to show you the stupidity of people, we had to buy another plot of ground about a mile away, about the size of ours, as a resting place for the black-tailed gnatcatcher, since we would be disturbing the environment where the black-tailed gnatcatcher every once in a while landed. Now, you got to understand, during this time of 11 years of, are we going to get the land or not? Guess money for the land. In fact, I have to stand in front of the people and say, we need you to help us financially, because the financial package was going to be so huge. I knew I had to get in front of it. And then I would say, by the way, the sacrifice you're making, we're not even telling you we can buy the land. We've got to get it approved. 11 years. Now, okay, just let me be me for a moment, and then I'll kind of go back into nice. If I'd have known that black-tailed gnatcatcher, that bird was going to cost us so much money and so much time, I'd have just gone out and shot the sucker. Honestly, hey, 2 years in prison, we could got on with our life. Okay, now listen to it. Okay, I'm just having fun with you. Relax, take a pill. Okay, here we go. This is important. I look back at my leadership during those years, and I can't show you the growth I had during the good times. I can show you growth. We had growth, but we raised $35 million. We were in midst of difficulty, and the progress we made, even though it was much smaller progress, was special ground to us, because that was filled with blood, sweat, and tears. So put behind you the difficulties, because we all have them right now, the crisis, and put before you and appreciate and value the progress. The story I like to tell so often is, I was at a conference, we had about 2,500 people listening to, I was doing a leadership conference, and a guy during the last break, I was signing books, came up to me, young kid, nice kid. And he just looked at me and said, I've been watching this. This is amazing. I'm learning all these leadership principles. Everybody's enjoying it. He said, I've decided I want to do what you do. I said, that's great. I like that. I said, just have one question for you. Would you like to do what I did so you can do what I do? You see, that's the question. Some of you are going to come out of this time, and you're going to have such respect for yourself. I teach that respect is earned on difficult ground, that moral authority is given when you are leading people through highly difficult times. And when you come out on that other side, I just want you to know that your greatest days of growth, as far as what it does for you internally, are right now. And that internal maximizing of growth will eventually pay off to the external also. Trust me, if it's in here, it has to get out there. It's just a matter of time. Number five, put behind you the personal benefits and put before you the people benefits. Now, this is kind of close to put behind you the sales and put in front of you adding value to people. But there's a difference. And let me tell you why I give you this point, that put behind you the personal benefits. What am I going to get out of this? And put before you the people benefits. And that is the reason I'm giving you that thought is I was listening to Patrick Lencioni the other day. He has a new book out. It's a very good book called Motives. And Patrick said that the question of leadership is this: why do you lead? Now, if you've heard me teach on leadership, I talk all the time about how I like to go to a person and say, okay, why do you want to become a leader? And Patrick did such a succinct job on this. He said, I always want to know why you want to become a leader, because that's going to tell me everything I need to know about your leadership. And he said, basically, there are two reasons to become a leader. One is reward, and number two is responsibility. And he said, if you're a leader, that you're in it because of the perks of leadership. I mean, oh my gosh, if I lead, I get a parking place, I get a good office. If I lead, I get all the. If you're in it because of the perks of leadership, he said, during a crisis, you won't show up because the perks are gone. But if you're in it for the people, if you're in it for the responsibility of helping lift the load, he said, then all of a sudden, this becomes absolutely huge in your life, because this was the moment you were born for. This is the tough time that you help the people have the victory and get the win in their life. We've all heard the statement, minor surgeries on you and major surgeries on me. Same surgery, but it's minor if you're having it. It's major if I'm having it. Well, I'm saying put behind you. Let's just get behind us all the stuff that would benefit us right now, or what we want. And let's put rewards behind us. Let's put responsibility in front of us, because you see, leaders see more than others see, and they see before others see. I call that the leadership advantage, and that's a fact. But because I have that leadership advantage, that I see more than you see and I see before you see, I either take that advantage and I put you before me and I serve you, or I take that advantage and I put me before me and I serve me. So put the personal benefits behind, hey, put the people in front of you. Okay, I'm going to do one more. Wow. Okay, here's the last one. Okay, there are maybe 9 or 10 of them total, but let's see. I got 9 of them. You get 6 of them. Okay, but here's one this is just really good. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to come back to 6. I'm going to give you right now the other 3, because you're going crazy right now. You're saying, wait a minute, I'm getting 6 out of 9, and I know what melancholics do like that. So I'm going to give you the other 3. I just can't talk about it. But so you got your outline when you give it to your people. I'm coming back to number 6. Number 7 was put behind you your feelings and put before you your values. You and I have to be value driven right now. Number 8, put behind you the future and put before you today. Now that this is, I wish I needed a little context there, but I'm just telling you the best clarity you have right now is today. There's a lot of uncertainty out there, and let's lead today. Today matters. And then the last point was put behind you complaining and put before you gratitude. Yeah, just put before you gratitude. It's very simply right there, gang. Is you just can't moan and lead at the same time. So who wants to follow a moaner? I mean, who wants to get up and say, hey, John's going to moan again today. Wow, won't this be a joy? I'm going to get inspired as he moans. Nobody knows the trouble I've seen. Nobody knows okay, here we go. So let me go back to the last point, and this is it. And that is, I want you to put behind you who you were and put before you who you can be. I touched this a little bit earlier, but I'm coming back to it now. When I said, at the end of this crisis, am I going to be better? That's the question. At the end of this crisis, are you going to be better? And when I do learning lunches, I've done learning lunches for 40 years. Once a month, take somebody out to lunch, buy them lunch, bigger, better, faster, smarter than me. I ask them questions. When I do learning lunches, I have 7 questions. And one of the questions I ask is, what is the most important lesson you've ever learned in your life? That really just helps me to know what they've gone through and how they've overcome it. Now, I've asked that question hundreds of times, and let me tell you something. I get different answers, but every answer I have gotten over 40 years comes out of the same setting, and this is what I don't want you to miss. If I were having a lunch, if I were having a lunch with you right now, it's just you and me, the 2 of us, And I ask you, what's the most important lesson you ever learned out of life? Here's what I know. When you gave me the lesson you learned would be out of a dark, difficult time in your life. 100%. I've never had anybody say, the most important lesson I ever learned in life was when I was on top of the mountain and everything was going wonderful and I was just being highly successful. No, they'll say, let me tell you something, John. And they'll take me to a valley. They'll take me to a dark time. They'll take me to a crisis. Because that's what awakens us. That's what gets our attention. Hey, that's what gets us out of automatic. We don't want to be an automatic. It gets us out of automatic, and all of a sudden we realize we aren't in control and we don't have those answers. And there's a sense of humility that comes in our life. And that's where we learn the greatest lessons of our life. By the way, wisdom isn't from somebody that just has a lot of knowledge and reads a lot of books. Wisdom always comes out of very dark, crucible times in a person's life. That's where wisdom is birthed. So what am I saying to you today? It's very simple. Many of us are going to look back and say, it was during the coronavirus that some things really began to change in my life, some values, some priorities. I kind of had a little bit of time to kind of readjust and adjust and make those changes. And that's what I want for you. So what you focus on expands. I love this visually. Put the things you need to look at before you. Put the things that are just going to weight you down and not get you where you want to go. Put them behind you. And God bless you.
Today's topic is titled, How to Manage Your Own Power Dynamics. Okay, where are we going with this? Is there something you want to tell me?
No, actually, you're very good at this. This is an interesting conversation I've had with many coaching clients that, power dynamics really describes how your power, your title, how it affects relationships. And what I've learned is there's always a power dynamic in play. Every time you enter a room, at home, at work, there's a dynamic going on. And so it affects your social life, the workplace. It's not negative, inherently negative. It could be if it's not managed. That's really what I want to talk about, is that are you aware of the power dynamics associated with you? And maybe we should even define that before we get going about power, because power can be a negative word, I think, sometimes.
Well, and as we look into this, I think there have been studies that have been done for a long time on many different types of power, different situations, different types of power. So we're not going to get into all of them, but what Perry has kind of brought to the table is 3 of them that I want to kind of share with us, and then we're going to kind of unpack as a leader, what do you do with that? And how do you make sure that that's not affecting your influence as a leader? So the first one is what we call coercive power, where that's the ability to offer punishments to deter certain actions. And for example, maybe what you want them to do or else, right? Like a little bit of authoritative kind of power from a coercive standpoint. The second one is the reward power. And this is where you're rewarding a desired behavior, where you're doing that so that the team will do certain things. And then the final one that we brought today is formal power. And this really comes back to almost kind of what you were just talking about in the introduction about it's really tied to my title, the position that the organization has, and that they know as team members that you have the ability to terminate them or to promote them, and that control kind of falls into you as a leader. And the people on your team and the organization are fully aware of all of these and how you are leading with them, without them, and accordingly. And so I love that you brought those 3 different types of power as a leader we need to be aware of.
Yeah, it took me a while as I got promoted from being an individual contributor, being a first line manager, second line, third line executive, that really anytime you have a position, your title enters the room before you do. And
that's
so
good.
thinking, am I aware of that? So just being aware that there is a power dynamic in play. And if I could act intentionally and that I'm aware of that, I may be able to offset some of the negative associated things. And one that I noticed the most was, especially the higher you go, is that I called it the salute and stay mute, that people will, depending on how you play your power, if you're using that coercive or formal power that comes with your title, are you actually shutting people down unintentionally because they're nervous about you, or what are you going to do with what I say, and they don't know if they can trust you. And so the power dynamics in play there can really get in the way of your engagement with the team.
Yeah, this is something I love. I love the phrase power dynamics. What we want you to make sure you understand is you may be trying to lead with power, but you may also not know that it's happening and it's happening. And to your point, I love your statement, what Perry said, which is your title enters the room before you do. And you need to be aware of that. And so as we dig into this, here's the first fundamental teaching for us. And you guys know this as longtime listeners of our podcast and even just John Maxwell's content as a whole, is that leadership is influence. It's not based off your position. Right. And you need to remember that if you lean on your title and your position, then you're playing to that power. And you can probably all think back to some leaders that kind of leaned on their position, or you can maybe even see some now that are doing that, and they're just playing to the power. But if you develop your influence with others, you don't need to worry about that title whatsoever. And so think about it like this. And I love this. You put this in our notes example. Think about this. When you enter a room, everyone goes, "Oh, the boss is here." You'll get a very different response. Sit up straight, maybe salute to your point, stay mute, whatever. But if they say, "Hey, Perry's here," it's kind of a different feeling. It's a different culture in regards to how you're entering a room and how your team is influenced by you.
It doesn't mean you're any less the boss.
Correct.
But
That's
it means
correct.
that they see you as a teammate.
Yeah.
And I love that aspect of that. A second way that you can manage this dynamic is I just call it step up or step back. And I saw this in a picture. We were teaching something in the 5 levels of leadership, and I saw this comment. And the word picture I have of it is when I enter the room, it feels like there's a box in the middle of the room, and I am, as the leader, supposed to step up. And by default, everyone else steps back, and they're waiting for me to espouse the truth from the top of the mountain or something. And I realized that if I could reverse that a little bit, that when I enter the room, I don't step up. I invite others to step up, and I step back. It allowed me to put them on the box, and now I'm able to ask people, what do you think? What's your point of view? How would you handle this? And I start to hear how they think. It just opened up all kinds of positive dynamics of relationship and influence building with others to say, if we're dependent on my brain power alone to lead this business, we're in trouble.
Yeah.
I actually think all of us are smarter than one of us, and I need to hear from you.
That's good.
It allowed me to require people to come to meetings with a point of view. Don't come if you don't have a point of view. And if you miss more than 2 meetings, I don't need you. So have a point of view.
That's good.
And think about it, and then come in, because I'm going to ask you to step up and to have a share of voice in the room that comes from you. So to me, that whole just picturing that when I enter the room, step back, let them step up.
That's good.
And don't, there are times absolutely you have to
Step up. Listen, ultimately, as a leader, you're responsible.
Oh, yeah.
But when you're going about entering a room and communication and collaboration, this is a great image to keep in mind as a leader, that to ask yourself, what are you doing? Which one of those are you doing? Well, the third way to manage your power dynamic is to give power to others or empower others. That's right. And so, probably John's most known book in the leadership space, The 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership. John talks about this in the Law of Empowerment, where secure leaders will give away power to others. And this is big in the workforce. This is something that as leaders we need to be accustomed to. We need to learn how to do a better job of, because I'm not sure that a lot of leaders feel comfortable empowering or giving power to others on their team. They saying that they can't handle it is not the right word. I don't know if it's an ego thing or if it's a pride thing, but it's something that I know a lot of leaders struggle with, and you coach executives, and I do as well, and we hear this quite a bit. But if you could learn how to do this, as we think about your power dynamics, there's a couple things that will come from this. You will build confidence in your team, not only you and the team as they then perform, but then the team in you. It also allows for movement to be happening while you're not there. I was having a conversation before Perry and I began recording this session with someone on the phone, and I said, one of my issues is I feel like I am a bottleneck. Things aren't progressing as fast as I would like them to, but that's on me because I'm not empowering certain people in certain situations to be able to do that. So this ties into that power dynamics. Like, I don't need to, again, think that I have to be able to do that because of my title. I have an incredible team and with incredible influence in them and with them, and so they should be able to do that. And then finally, my last thought on this one is that you need to make sure that as you're thinking about this empowerment, that you become an inspiring coach, right? Like, not a level 1 leader, as we talk about the 5 levels of leadership. Really, we're talking about now, how do you work your way up through influence levels to level 4 to where you become an inspiring coach as you empower them. And when you do that, there won't be any question about the power dynamics going on in your leadership.
Yeah, I actually like that John called out the secure leader gives power. And what is that? I found so many times, actually on the coaching call this morning, it came up that it wasn't the leader I was speaking to. He was trying to coach somebody in his organization. He was the CEO, but he said this person doesn't want to give power to others because this person feels it makes them look weak or makes them look like they're not as important. And so that's the insecure leader in you saying, and it's actually a scarcity mindset. And so we were talking about how do you get an abundant mindset in this leader to say, I'm going to give power to you, which is empowering you, making you better so that you can go forward and do the work. And then that frees me up to do the things that only I can do.
That's good.
I think as a leader, I need to free myself, make sure that I'm doing the things that only I can do. And that by empowering others to do the work, other things, then I'm growing, they're growing, and it requires that abundant mindset for me to say there's plenty to go around.
Yeah.
I don't need to hold it all for me.
So we use this word vulnerability, which is,
I remember that one.
Which almost to some people would think that it's an oxymoron of power, right? Like, but we talk about this. I think this is extremely important that we bring this up. Talk a little bit about, from your perspective, the role that vulnerability plays in this whole power dynamic leadership / influence.
Yes, this comes up in every conversation we have in a classroom now, is that vulnerability is a big word in leadership, but a lot of people think it means weak or it means that I'm somehow less than, and it really is about trust building. That you're saying if you're putting out that you're the powerful one, you have the title, you're perfect. I heard Brene Brown say that we love making people think we're perfect, but we ourselves don't like people who act like they're perfect. So
that's good.
What? Yeah, we're not perfect. So why would you want to act that way? But vulnerability is really just owning your authenticity and saying, I made a mistake. I could use some help. The 3 most unused words in leadership: I don't know. Allowing other people to speak into, and not you having to have an answer for everything. And I think when you have a strong power dynamic, people will yield to you, and it's very tempting for you to act like you have the answer for everything. Yeah. And I challenge leaders most of the time. I say, don't you, if you're pressed, don't you have an answer? Like, why would you say I don't know? Well, what if I don't know? Oh, you almost always know.
Yeah.
Almost every leader I know knows. They don't want to say I don't know. But instead of that, I say, well, I know what I think. What do you think? And then inviting others into it to have that vulnerability, which then builds trust. People say, hey, you're a real dude. You're a real person. You're like me. And then all of a sudden you have a relationship. Your power dynamic comes down. You invite others into the conversation. And when you do these things, engagement goes up, buy-in goes up, results go up. It's really a great thing to not play your power card, but instead be a little more vulnerable, build the trust, be authentic, and people will follow.
Yeah, I love how you just positioned that for us in regards to you don't want to, with lack of integrity, go, I don't know, if you really know. As leaders, we most of the time may know the answer to a certain situation. But I like the word you used where you said think. I think a certain way. What do you think about this? Mm-hmm. And so now you're being true. You have a thought around it, but you're also not saying, I know the answer. Instead of saying, I know the answer, what do you think, right? What are they going to do? I don't know, Perry. What is the answer? I got it. But I like what you said there. It's a great phrase for us to use with our people in regards to growing the connection with them, saying, I have a thought on this, but what do you think first? Yeah. And versus using the word no. So, man, I appreciate this conversation. As I wrap up, there's 4 things I want to talk about just real quickly in regards to this power dynamics. As Perry said early on, as we were getting started, this word power and dynamics is not necessarily something that people want to. I mean, listen, if you were playing middle linebacker, for the NFL team, like, you want to bring all kinds of power. As leaders, you're like, I don't know, is that really what I want to be known for? But it's going to happen. You have it as you're leading people, as you're influencing people. Remember, we interchange those words. So I think we all have some sort of that. And so I want to encourage you. The first point here is just to embrace the idea of the fact that you do have power. It's a weird word for us to talk about, but you do have that as a leader or somebody with influence. But what I want to challenge you to do, and this is where we get at level 1, where we talk about how are you going to define your leadership. So I come back to that and say, well, give power a new name to your people, so that they may think you have power, but ultimately you're giving power a new name, so that you can have the impact that you want and be comfortable with that over time. And I think you also need to make sure you're continually guiding and looking out for others with that influence or that power that you have. So embrace that idea, because it can benefit not only you, but also the team and the organization. The second point is make sure you are aware of the negative impacts of that power. Perry mentioned your title walks into the room before you do, and other things. People salute and say mute.
I just thought about, when we do a lot of workshops, and we do a workshop for a team, and the senior leader is there.
Yeah.
Have you ever noticed in the room, you can tell what kind of dynamics are going on when I just see if the CEO or the senior vice president of something or another is in the room, the people around the table get really quiet.
Yeah.
Or I've seen it where they just mix it up and they challenge each other, and I say, okay, this is the CEO she's managed her power exactly right. People are not intimidated. They're willing to mix it up, versus the one where I see them all with their arms folded and looking at their shoes to make sure that they don't say anything wrong in front of the boss.
Where the boss is shutting down the room.
So when you have that point, sorry.
That's good. No, it's good. Yeah. The third point here, as we're wrapping up, is to make sure that you're elevating those with less power around you. Goes back to the empowering thing. Mm-hmm. Make sure you're elevating them, and create spaces and opportunities for them to gain power. We're using this word power. It almost makes you feel uncomfortable talking about it. But create those spaces for them to do that. And then finally, involve your heart in a lot of the decisions that you make. And, we've had Joel Manby as part of our thought leaders, and he wrote an incredible book. And he really talks about, leading by loving people, the verb. And how do you do that when you make decisions? Because if you don't do that, you're going to minimize the team and their contribution by treating them like a number. And that's not going to bode well for your influence overall. And then my last thought is just remember the motive behind why you're in the position that you are in and why you're doing what you're doing. And if that motive is pure, then you're not going to come across as leveraging your power dynamics as a leader.
My father taught me, this is lesson, I think, number 5. My father taught me to stay focused. To stay focused. I've said often that what you focus on expands. I learned it from my dad. I wrote a book called Intentional Living. That book is my father. My father lived intentional. He realized that good intentions were not enough. You had to have good actions. And so intentional living is the bridge from good intentions to good actions. And my father stayed focused. My friend Dan Ryland talks about I love the phrase that Dan gave me recently. He said, pick a rabbit, pick a rabbit. We've all heard that, the thing that if you chase 2 rabbits, both of them get away. Of course, you're double-minded and I'll go for this one. And while you're hesitating, they're both down the hole. Pick a rabbit. My father knew how to pick a rabbit, and he was intentional in his priorities and in his life. I could give you so many examples of this, but I'm just going to share with you one. My father, this is interesting. My father did the grocery shopping in the family. My mom made the list out, and my father was kind of a guy of action, and he loved every Friday afternoon about 3, 4 o'clock, going and getting the groceries. And he would take us with him. And we love going to, that sounds crazy. The kids want to go to the grocery store, but you never went to the grocery store with my dad. If you went to the grocery store with my dad, it was a
highlight. First of all, let's go back to focus for a moment. He would share with us, he'd say, kids, most people, they go to the store every day. He said, and I don't understand why they do that. Why don't they make a list and figure out what they need for the next few days and go once a week? He said, there's no need of getting in the car and going back and forth. He said, it makes no sense at all. Why don't you just prioritize, focus, and then do it all at one time? And that's how he did the grocery shopping, and we did it on Friday afternoon. And when we went to the grocery store, the reason we loved going to the grocery store with Dad is he would take the stuff off the shelf, and I'd have a cart, my brother Larry'd have a cart, and then he'd throw it to us. Oh, my goodness. Literally. He would get on one aisle and we'd be on the other aisle. He'd throw it over the aisle and we would catch it. We had so much fun. It was a blast. And yes, we had some broken ketchup bottles and on the floor. And we'd have to get the manager and mop it up and clean it up and pay for the broken ketchup bottles. And that's what kept us going back because we loved the grocery game. Now, my father understood that what you focus on expands. And so he said, go shopping once a week. But he here's what he would say to us all the time. He'd say, kids, if it was important, he'd say, put it before you. And what he meant by put it before you is write it down. Write it down, put it before you. And then he wanted us really to put it on the mirror in our bathroom. Write it down, put it before you so you can see it all the time. What did he know? He knew that the more we saw maybe a quote or a thought or a statement, the more that statement would expand in our life. In fact, you'd say, put before you what you want to expand and put behind you what you want to shrink. So my dad was incredible, absolutely the very best in helping us learn how to focus in life. I just learned to pick a rabbit from him. Often when I'm in conversation with people, like at dinner, I love to ask questions, and one of the questions I love to ask is, what's the best advice that you ever received and who gave it to you? And the best advice that I ever received was when I graduated from college, and I sat down with my father and I asked him to just give me what he thought would be the best career advice. How can I just do well? And I'll never forget, he said, John, 3 things. If you'll do these 3 things, I promise you'll do well. And what he shared with me that day, I have carried with me my entire life. And every time I teach, every time I write, every time I lead, he said, John, every day value people because most people go through life and they've not been truly valued. Because they've not been truly valued, sometimes they don't even have the value that they have for themselves that they should have. So he said, lift people by letting them see not only who they are, which is already valuing people, but who they can become. He said, believe in people. Just look at people and believe the best, think the best, receive the best. He said, always stay in the best with people. He said, we are all human. Every one of us have our worst side. Wow. I mean, let's just talk about it for a moment, that there's probably a day in your life and in my life that we hope nobody ever knows about. I mean, we don't always operate on top level, but my father taught me that the best way to get people to live the best life is to believe in them. And then thirdly, he said, and this is the clincher, he said, unconditionally love them. He said, I could almost promise you as you speak, as you lead, as you write, I can almost promise you that the person that you are communicating with has never been unconditionally loved. I mean, just loved, period. No strings attached. But he said, if you'll unconditionally love them, they'll immediately feel it. They'll experience it. And he said, John, you will be a people magnet. People will want to be around you because no one else gives them that unconditional love feeling. Incredible advice. We've all heard this statement that people will forget what you said. They'll even maybe forget what you did. But they won't forget how you made them feel. Unconditional love makes people feel something that no other way or other person can ever be given to them. It's a fact. And so I took my dad's advice, and I just value people, believe in people, unconditionally love them. I do that for you, but I do that for everyone. And I have found that that was the greatest advice I've ever received, and hopefully it'll help you. I'm sure it will. The second lesson that my father taught me, this is a faith lesson, but this is an incredible teaching, is he taught me to pray without ceasing. In other words, continually pray. I shared with you earlier that many of the lessons my father taught me were more his actions than his words. And this is one of them for sure, that if you grew up around my father, Melvin Maxwell, one thing that you very quickly caught was that he had an ongoing conversation with God. And I love that phrase, ongoing conversation with God. You see, a lot of my faith friends, they would set aside time, which I think is good, to spend with God. And my father said, that's good, son. But he said, why would you just take a little bit of time and just spend it with him when, in honesty, you could spend all day with him? He never leaves you. He never forsakes you. He sticks closer to you than a brother. He always is ready to hear you, listen to you, minister to you, add value to you. So he said, John, just have an ongoing conversation with him. My father taught me to make prayer, instead of something that is formal and something that maybe has a box or a place, he just taught me to talk to God. Sentence prayers, not long. In fact, many times as my father would walk around the house, he would just say things like, God, I just really appreciate how. And I would just listen to him, and then he would move on to something else. And those sentence prayers throughout the day shared with me and showed me that he did something with what one of the old saints, Thomas à Kempis, would say. He practiced the presence of God. I learned to do that. And I can tell you that is the greatest spiritual asset in my life. I have ongoing, continual conversations with God. Not formal, not long, not complicated, just from my heart, where I am, what I'm thinking, what I'm seeing, what I'm encountering at that moment. And I have found great spiritual relief and developed great spiritual muscle in just knowing that he's right beside me. And by the way, he's right beside you too. In fact, I have had many of my wonderful friends who, some of them don't even believe in God, and they'll say, well, you mean he's beside me? Yeah, he's beside you. See, he's beside you whether you believe in him or not. It's like I told one of my one of my favorite atheist friends, I just said, I know you don't believe in God, but you sure do miss him, don't you? Of course you miss him. You were created to know him. You were created to spend time with him. And my father teaching me to pray without ceasing, invaluable in my spiritual journey with him. It's a lesson that I'll carry with me all my life. It's a lesson he taught me, but now, today, it's a lesson that I live. The third area that my father just really helped me in, and a lesson that was invaluable to me, was the fact that my dad taught me to be consistent. My father was always the same. He had good days, he had bad days, circumstances that were up, circumstances that were down. But he was steady. He was faithful. In fact, sometimes when I think of my father, if somebody just said you could only describe him in one word, I would probably debate between the word faithful and the word consistent. And yet I can really clump them together, and so can you. If faithful is consistent, and consistent is faithful. And he was consistent in not only his words but his deeds. He had great he had great integrity in the fact that what he said is what he did, and what he did is what he said. So he never sent our family, he never sent us curveballs. We didn't look at him and say, what just happened there? Oh my, that doesn't seem like Dad. Now, let me just also say that my dad was human, so I'm not in any way wanting to make him a saint. In fact, I can promise you he taught me a lot of great lessons, but all the lessons he taught me weren't maybe the best lessons. So let me just give you one real quick. My father taught me how to drive fast, okay? My dad liked to speed, my brother likes to speed, my sister likes to speed, I like to speed. I'm sorry. We learned that from my dad. My dad, every other year, would buy a car. It was a ritual. Every 2 years, Dad would go down and buy a car. And we loved to go with him when he bought the car because two things. We knew it wouldn't take long. My dad made decisions very quickly. And secondly, we knew that as soon as he bought the car, we'd get in the back seat and he would take us out to Route 22, heading west out of Circleville, Ohio. And he'd turn around to the back seat, and he'd look at the kids, and he'd say, "Kids, let's see what she's got." He'd put that accelerator to the floor, and we'd take off on that little straight road. And he'd get it up to 100 miles an hour, and he'd let off the gas and kind of pull over and turn around and smile at the kids and say, "I think we got a good one. Let's take it home." That was a ritual every other year. And my father, he had a heavy foot. So I'm telling you that because I just want you to know when I'm talking about all the incredible qualities that he had some humanness to him also. He wasn't a perfect man, never even pretended to be a perfect man. He was an authentic man, not a perfect man. But when I look at my father, most of the lessons I'm going to teach you are incredibly positive and uplifting. And I just want you to know that he had a human side too. He wasn't a saint, close. He wasn't a saint. But he taught us to be consistent. And his consistency was rooted in the fact that he had a set of values that he greatly valued. And he had a set of principles that he always followed. And those principles just kept him going straight. And those values, and some of the principles, by the way, some of the values I'll be teaching you in these 3 lessons on my tribute to my father. But those principles helped him to go straight, and those values helped him to stay solid. And so therefore, when I saw my dad, everything was congruent. Everything matched up. It's been a great lesson for me because I feel that consistency is something that is an incredible way to live, but I think so many times it's kind of overlooked. I mean, we seldom get a consistency award, and I suppose if we did, it's not a sexy word. I suppose if we did get a consistency award, we might be a little ticked and say, "Come on, can't you think of better words or adjectives for me like genius or brilliant or charismatic?" I mean, consistency is it's a great word. It's a solid word, but it's not the one we strive for. When you ask people, what do you want to be in life? Very few people are going to say, I want to be consistent. And yet, as I watched my father live for 98 years and 8 months, let me tell you what I know about consistency. It compounds. Trust me. If you are consistently good, you consistently compound goodness. And it gets better and better and better. That's a fact. I had a conversation one day with my dad. He was probably about 90. And we were talking in his office at his home. And he said, "John," he said, "isn't it wonderful? The older you get, the more a person loves people." He said, it's just been wonderful. I'm getting older, but I love more people. I love people more today than I did 20 years ago. He said, "Isn't it wonderful that as you get older, you just love people more?" And I said, "Dad, that's not true. I know a whole bunch of people. I'll bet you do too. I know a lot of people. They're getting older, and they're not loving people more. Hey, they're getting older, but they're not getting better." Now, it was true for my father because there's a principle here that I want to teach. It's about consistency. He loved people when he was young. He loved people in his middle age. He loved people when he retired. You see, my father, every step of the journey, loved people. Now, here's what I know. if you have a good quality within you, as you get older, that quality expands, it exaggerates, because one of the things that happens with aging is exaggeration. And so the qualities I have in me, if they're good, they grow and exaggerate in a positive way. And the qualities I have within me, if they're negative and bad, they also grow and exaggerate, but they grow and exaggerate in a negative way. In my book, Today Matters, which is sometimes entitled Make Today Count, I talk about the fact that, that I have disciplines in my life, what I call the daily 12 disciplines. And I talk about in the book how that I think it was 3 or 4 of those disciplines I literally learned as a teenager, and about 3 or 4 others in my 20s. And I talk about when I learned these and to practice these important disciplines in my life. But the one that I learned last, the one that I worked on and fixed and improved last was my own health. And I didn't even work on it until I was 51. I had a heart attack. I was always I thought, a healthy person. I wasn't a sickly person, that was for sure. And when I had a heart attack at 51, I had a big wake-up call, and all of a sudden I realized, John, you have to live a more healthy lifestyle. You're falling short here. So that was the last maybe good habit I formed, and I didn't form it until 51. Now here's what I want you to understand. Of all the daily disciplines I have in my life, do you know what today is my most difficult discipline? Healthy lifestyle, eating right, exercising. Why? Because for 51 years, I didn't do it. Now, it's the point that I'm making on consistency, that the earlier we become consistent in good habits, the more those good habits compound in a positive way, just as if I'm consistent in bad habits, they compound in a negative way. And my father taught me the value of good habits and living this incredible, unbelievable, consistent life. The next lesson, wow. The next lesson that I learned that just is one of the most important to me, and it's another faith lesson, so just be patient with me, is my father showed me how to share my faith in a positive way with other people. And I think the key is share my faith in a positive way, because there are a lot of people, to be honest with you, they don't do it right. And the whole foundation of my father teaching me how to share my faith in a positive way was based on the fact that he said, John, every person, they're created by God. And he said they intuitively want to know God. I mean, after all, he's their creator. He said the reason that they don't know God is because they have a wrong picture of God. And he said as soon as you share with them who God really is, and they begin to understand that with all of his goodness and all of his attributes, they'll want to know him. It's kind of like I share with people all the time, the best networking question you can ask someone is, who do you know that I should know? Well, my father loved for people to ask him that question, who do you know that I should know? Because he'd say, oh, you need to know my Heavenly Father. And he passed that on to me. And I have found that his words and his actions in sharing faith are exactly true. That people really do want to know God. They just have a wrong picture of God. And to be honest with you, if I had a wrong picture of God, I wouldn't want to know him. I think the first step in a good relationship is to know who a person really is. And if that person is a good person, you want to engage in that relationship and grow and build it. Well, it's the same way with God. Once you understand his care for you, his unconditional love for you, his forgiveness for you, I mean, my goodness. If you just took the attributes of God and just kind of stacked them up and say, would you like to know this person? The answer would be yes, 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 of course. And so my dad just shared with me and taught me how to be positive with people. And by the way, in sharing your faith, the first thing you do, more than value your faith, is you value the person again. It all comes back to valuing people. And the moment that I value you, I'm going to want to share what I call good news with you. And good news is that God loves you, has a plan for your life, and wants you to have even a better and greater life than you even want for yourself. And once you know him, you'll understand what I'm talking about. And I'm going to stop here just for a second, because if I have in any way, what should I say, piqued your interest, I would like you to do something for me when I'm done, maybe with this tribute to Dad, these few lessons I'm teaching in my first session. We're going to do 3 of them. I want you to go to maxwellfaith.com, because you're going to see me share with you visually the 4 pictures of God, what I've just talked about if you have the right picture of God, I think you'll want to know him. And I would just encourage you on your own time, go to maxwellfaith.com and just observe and listen. And if you decide to have a relationship with God, I just want you to know that our team will, there'll be a way for you to get involved with us for a moment, just briefly, and our team will get hold of you. And they will give you an opportunity, if you want, to just give you free resources, no strings attached, none at all. But if you're really interested in a relationship with God and having this incredible forgiveness, peace, etc., then just go to maxwellfaith.com and you'll learn what to do to follow through, and we'll be able to put in your hands in a very short time some great material, a study guide, and then a special surprise for you that I think will just really help you grow in your faith. Okay. My father taught me, this is lesson, I think, number 5. My father taught me to stay focused. To stay focused. I've said often that what you focus on expands. I learned it from my dad. I wrote a book called Intentional Living. That book is my father. My father lived intentional. He realized that good intentions were not enough. You had to have good actions. And so intentional living is the bridge from good intentions to good actions. And my father stayed focused. My friend Dan Ryland talks about I love the phrase that Dan gave me recently. He said, pick a rabbit. Pick a rabbit. We've all heard that, the thing that if you chase 2 rabbits, both of them get away. Of course, you're double-minded, and I'll go for this one. And while you're hesitating, they're both down the hole. Pick a rabbit. My father knew how to pick a rabbit, and he was incredible intentional in his priorities and in his life. I could give you so many examples of this, but I'm just going to share with you one. My father, this is interesting, my father did the grocery shopping in the family. My mom made the list out, and my father was kind of a guy of action, and he loved every Friday afternoon about 3, 4 o'clock going and getting the groceries. And he would take us with him, and we loved going to, that sounds crazy, the kids want to go to the grocery store, but you never went to the grocery store with my dad. If you went to the grocery store with my dad, it was a highlight. First of all, let's go back to focus for a moment. He would share with us, he'd say, kids, most people, they go to the store every day. He said, and I don't understand why they do that. Why don't they make a list and figure out what they need for the next few days and go once a week? He said, there's no need of getting in the car and going back and forth. He said, it makes no sense at all. Why don't you just prioritize, focus, and then do it all at one time? And that's how he did the grocery shopping, and we did it on Friday afternoon. And when we went to the grocery store, the reason we loved going to the grocery store with Dad is he would take the stuff off the shelf, and I'd have a cart, my brother Larry'd have a cart, and then he'd throw it to us. Oh, my goodness. Literally. He would get on one aisle, and we'd be on the other aisle. He'd throw it over the aisle, and we would catch it. We had so much fun. It was a blast. And yes, we had some broken ketchup bottles, and on the floor. And we'd have to get the manager and mop it up and clean it up and pay for the broken ketchup bottles. And that's what kept us going back, because we loved the grocery game. Now, my father understood that what you focus on expands, and so he said, go shopping once a week. But here's what he would say to us all the time. He'd say, kids, if it was important, he'd say, put it before you. And what he meant by put it before you is write it down. Write it down, put it before you. And then he wanted us really to put it on the mirror in our bathroom. Write it down, put it before you so you can see it all the time. What did he know? He knew that the more we saw maybe a quote or a thought or a statement, the more that statement would expand in our life. In fact, you'd say, put before you what you want to expand and put behind you what you want to shrink. So my dad was incredible, absolutely the very best in helping us learn how to focus in life. I just learned to pick a rabbit from him. This next lesson I'm going to share with you that Dad taught me was a life changer. There's hardly a day goes by in my life that this lesson doesn't come to play somewhere in my leadership journey, and that is Dad taught us to travel the high road. Now, in fact, he in traveling in life, he told us to take the high road, which means turn the other cheek, go the second mile, be kind to people that aren't kind to you, and he, in fact, he said not only travel the high road, but he said travel high, travel long. And when he was talking about traveling long, he'd say, go the second mile. And that's a old traditional biblical Jewish kind of a deal that in those days, that if somebody asked you to go with them, you would walk with them a mile. That was what you did. That's how you served people. But if you walked with them the second mile, it was totally voluntary. They had no right to ask you, nor you didn't have any obligation to do it. And so my father was a second mile man. He would always say, travel the second mile with people. He said, there's less traffic on the second mile. I love that. Less traffic on the second. On the first mile, under obligation and rules and legalism, a lot of traffic. Second mile thins out pretty quick. So he'd say, travel the high road, be good to people that maybe aren't always good to you. And not only travel the high road, but travel long. Walk that second mile. And they also taught us to travel light. You'd think he's a travel agent, wouldn't you? Travel light. And what he meant by that is just don't carry a bunch of garbage. Don't carry a bunch of baggage. Let it go. If you're going to go mountain climbing, you don't ask the question, how much weight can I take to the top? You get rid of everything you possibly can that will be weight, so you can successfully get to the top. And my father said, you can't carry a bunch of baggage to the top of the success mountain. Forgive. Keep short accounts. It's okay. Let it go. Travel light, travel far, travel high. But it was in the high road. That's where life change really happened for me. My father was a president of a college. It's now High Christian University, and for several years. And he had on his college board 2 or 3 people that just thought it was their job to be a pain in his rear end. And honestly, they couldn't have grown the college. My father was very successful, built the college, grew it, I think, 5 times the original enrollment when he left the college, and it was just built a brand new campus, relocated it. Very successful, but he had about 3 or 4 board members that just thought it was their job to be a pain. And I knew about it because I really went to college where my dad was the president, and think about it for a moment. That's an IQ test. If you go to college where your father is the president, you increase the odds of maybe graduating from college. And so it was in my college years and in the great growing years of the school that he just got a lot of criticism from a few of his board members. And I would hear him and Mom talk about it, and it would make me angry. And I'd say, Dad, stand up. Don't let them do that to you. You're right. They're wrong. And I was kind of militant in the process. And my father would say, son, he said, I just listen. He said, I have the ability. I'm courageous. I stand up. But he said, I value people, and there's times when you just turn the other cheek and walk the high road. And I remember one night, my mother was the librarian. One night I was in the college library after hours. I had a key. Mom was the librarian. And I was clearing the back of the library just doing some study. And my father didn't know I was in the library, and he slipped into the library. It was at the end of a college board meeting. And he went clear back to a corner. He didn't see me, but he went back to a corner and knelt, and he started to pray. And my father prayed out loud. And as he prayed, he was greatly troubled over the board meeting and the difficulties that came out of it and the pain that some of these board members were causing him. And he was asking God to forgive them, and he was asking God to bless them. And I listened to my father pray probably for, 10, 12 minutes. And it changed my life. He never knew that night that I was in the library. He slipped out, and it wasn't until several years later we had a conversation. I said, Dad, I was in the library the night you prayed and asked God to bless people that were persecuting you, and they were just a pain to you. That totally revolutionized and changed my life. And I owe it all to Dad, because in leadership is difficult. I can promise you, you know this to be true, there are no 2 good consecutive days in a leader's life. Wow. Not 2. It's a pain to lead people. People are difficult. That's why you've got to love them. If you don't love them, you shouldn't lead them, because it's too difficult to lead people, difficult people, if you don't love them. But in leadership, traveling that high road, traveling high, traveling far, traveling light, life-changing for me. My dad taught me that lesson. And I hope what did I do? I don't know how many lessons I had. I gave you 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I only gave you 6 lessons. Okay. I'm going to have to go a little faster in tribute number 2. But I gave you 6, okay? And hopefully that'll help you. And you hang on, because, again, every week I'm coming back to you with tribute number 2 to Dad and tribute number 3. And we'll just kind of learn some life lessons together. And it will be good for me, because I'll get to talk to you about how I valued my father and how the lessons he taught me changed my life. And it's my hope that when you meet with me every week, that some of those lessons will stick with you, and it'll help you to be the person that I know you want to become.
Welcome to the Maxwell Leadership Executive Podcast, where our goal is to help you increase your reputation as a leader, increase your ability to influence others, and increase your ability to fully engage your team to deliver remarkable results.